Hello students and welcome back. Students, today we are going to take up the second part of the chapter Indigo. We are going to go through the text and understand that how Gandhi as a leader was selfless, compassionate, understanding, courageous. So we will start with the quote that a true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. He does not set out to be a leader but becomes one by the equality of his actions and the integrity of his intent. And all these words, actually each one of them, was personified in the form of Gandhi. So let's get started. And the part that we are taking up today, firstly, is the part where it is described in a detailed manner that what was the real problem faced by the sharecroppers, how it all happened, and why did it happen. So let's start. Most of the arable land in the Champaran district was divided into large estates owned by Englishmen and worked by Indian tenants. The chief commercial crop was indigo. The landlords compelled all tenants to plant 3/20ths or 15% of their holdings with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. And this was done by long-term contract. So it was the duty of each and every sharecropper to grow only indigo in 15% of the entire land and submit the entire harvest as the rent. And this was a long-term contract, so no problem up until now. Presently, the landlords learned that Germany had developed synthetic indigo. They thereupon obtained agreements from the sharecroppers to pay them compensation for being released from the 15% agreement, the arrangement. And this part is pretty tricky. It's quite confusing also. I mean, if there was a long-term contract between the sharecroppers and the British landlords, and if the sharecroppers, they have to get out of it. And why get out of it? Because the British landlords wanted it. Why? Because Germany started producing synthetic indigo. And when synthetic indigo was being produced on a large scale, obviously the rate, the price of the synthetic indigo was much less than the natural indigo. There was no production cost, no transportation cost, because natural indigo was produced here in India by these poor farmers, and synthetic indigo was produced in factories in Germany. So there was less number of transportation cost, and that is why it was much cheaper in the markets of Europe. And that is why the British landlords decided that this indigo business is not profitable anymore. Let's get done with it. And because they wanted to get done with it, they needed money. They wanted money from the poor sharecroppers. So only because the sharecroppers should not be in this long-term contract as per the wish of the British landlords, they had to pay the compensation, which is quite unjustified. So the sharecropping arrangement was basically very irksome for the peasants. Irksome is troublesome. And many signed willingly. Those who resisted engaged lawyers. The landlords hired thugs. Meanwhile, the information about synthetic indigo reached the illiterate peasants who had signed already, and they wanted their money back. Now, because its entire coming out of the contract procedure was completely unjustified and could not be understood by any intelligent person, but still some of the farmers who found that this 15% arrangement was quite troublesome, they decided to sign. But later on, when they too came to know that it was also wrong, that is when they also wanted their money back. So everybody in the sharecropping community was fed up by the British landlords and their ever changing rules. They decided to claim their money back, and they hired the lawyers also, but the landlords hired thugs and exploited the farmers over and over again. And at this point, Gandhi arrived in Champaran. He began by trying to get the facts. First, he visited the secretary of the British Landlords Association. The secretary told him that they could give no information to an outsider. Gandhi answered that he was no outsider. Next, Gandhi called on the British official commissioner of the Tirhut division in which the Champaran district lay. The commissioner, Gandhi reports, proceeded to bully me and advised me forthwith to leave their hut. Now, in this pre-independence era, India was not yet divided into these states that we know, and people are free to roam here and there. They are free to purchase the property also. But during those days, it was said that you belong to that particular state, you belong to that particular kingdom. You cannot come over here and tell us what to do. The same was experienced by Gandhi. People were calling him outsider, but he kept on saying that actually British were the ones who were the outsiders. He was an Indian. He could go anywhere in his own country and would fight for his own citizens. Gandhi did not leave. Instead, he proceeded to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. Several lawyers accompanied him. At the railway station, a vast multitude greeted Gandhi. Vast multitude is a huge crowd, as you can see in the picture. So, a vast multitude greeted Gandhi. He went to a house and, using it as headquarters, continued his investigations. A report came in that a peasant had been maltreated in a nearby village. Gandhi decided to go and see. The next morning, he started out on the back of an elephant. He had not proceeded far when the police superintendent's messenger overtook him and ordered him to return to town in his carriage. Gandhi complied. Complied is agreed. The messenger drove Gandhi home, where he served him with an official notice to quit Champaran immediately. Gandhi signed a receipt for the notice and wrote on it that he would disobey the order. Now, when a common citizen decides to disobey the order issued by the government, and that too in written, it was very much clear that some legal procedure will take place, and he had to face the government as well as the judiciary, and the same happened. In consequence, Gandhi received a summons to appear in court the next day, and when he wrote it down, it was very much clear that he might be arrested then and there on spot and would be sent to prison. And that is why all night Gandhi remained awake. He telegraphed Rajendra Prasad to come from Bihar with influential friends. He sent instructions to the ashram. He wired a full report to the viceroy. So this is how Gandhi has emerged as a leader. He listened to the people, he collected the necessary information, he contacted the influential people, he looked at all the possible areas or all the possible opportunities through which the problem can be solved. More importantly, he was courageous enough to take the action, to take the initiative to get himself arrested and go to prison for the sake of the sharecroppers whom he did not know at all some days ago. And that is how he emerges as the true leader. So what happened on the next day? Morning found the town of Motihari black with peasants. So when I say, or when it is written black with peasants, it is clear that this entire town was filled with peasants from all over the place. They did not know Gandhi's record in South Africa. They had merely heard that a Mahatma who wanted to help them was in trouble with the authorities. Their spontaneous demonstration in thousands around the courthouse was the beginning of their liberation from fear of the British. So the Champaran the small place Motihari, was completely filled with peasants coming from everywhere on foot in thousands. And how they came out of their fear, they came out of the clutches of the British landlords and decided to side with the Mahatma who came there and who was ready to go to prison for their sake. This shows that they were started to get out of the fear. That is what it is written here, liberation from fear. Now there were so many people outside the court. The officials felt powerless without Gandhi's cooperation. He helped them regulate the crowd. He was polite and friendly. He was giving them concrete proof that their might here is power. Hitherto is up until now. So their might, up until now, dreaded and unquestioned, could be challenged by Indians. So when the officials could not handle thousands of peasants and Gandhi could handle them. That is when he was giving a clear-cut proof that if all Indians come together, then no government, any amount of British force could not control the power of the people. The government was baffled. Baffled is confused. The prosecutor requested the judge to postpone the trial. Apparently, the authorities wished to consult their superiors. Gandhi protested against the delay. Now, what was supposed to happen? Gandhi was definitely to be arrested and sent to prison. But outside the court, there were thousands of people. Anything could happen. Anything drastic could happen. And those people could do anything violent against the people sitting inside the court if Gandhi was arrested in front of them. That is why the government was baffled. They could not understand what to do with Gandhi. But Gandhi was ready to pay the price and go to jail. He read a statement pleading guilty. He was involved, he told the court, in a conflict of duties. On the other hand, not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker. On the other hand, to render the humanitarian and national service for which he had come. He disregarded the order to leave, not for want of respect for lawful authority, but in obedience to the higher law of our being the voice of conscience. He asked the penalty due. So he was ready to go to jail and he kept on saying in the court that he was involved in a conflict of duties, whether he should remain as a law-abiding citizen or he should become a lawbreaker. And he decided to become a lawbreaker for the sake of the sharecroppers because after all their side was the right one. The magistrate announced that he would pronounce sentence after a 2-hour recess and asked Gandhi to furnish bail for those 120 minutes. Gandhi refused. The judge released him without bail. So this usually never happens, and you can understand that how the judge and the judiciary was completely afraid of the people standing outside and the persona of Gandhi, that they could not let him go to jail and they let him just go freely. When the court reconvened, the judge said he would not deliver the judgment for several days. Meanwhile, he allowed Gandhi to remain at liberty. Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu, Maulana Mazharul Haq and several other prominent lawyers had arrived from Bihar. They conferred with Gandhi. What would they do if he was sentenced to prison? Gandhi asked. Why? The senior lawyer replied. They had come to advise and help him. If he went to jail, there would be nobody to advise and they would go home. What about the injustice to the sharecroppers? Gandhi demanded. The lawyers withdrew to consult. Rajendra Prasad has recorded the upshot of their consultations. They thought amongst themselves that Gandhi was totally a stranger, and yet he was prepared to go to prison for the sake of the peasants. If they, on the other hand, being not only residents of the adjoining districts but also those who claimed to have served these peasants, should go home, it would be shameful desertion. That is when they realized that they were a part of the team and they must contribute selflessly. And as written here, that a leader's job is to look into the future and see the organization not as it is but as it should be, and that is what Gandhi was trying to show to the lawyers who considered themselves to be on a higher level than the sharecroppers. And Gandhi made them realize that all of them are working as a team, and if they start working properly, then there won't be any looking back. And they realized it also. They accordingly went back to Gandhi and told him they were ready to follow him into jail. The Battle of Champaran is won, he exclaimed. Then he took a piece of paper and divided the group into pairs and put down the order in which each pair was to court arrest. So he made everyone realize the importance of teamwork, and then he distributed the task also like a true leader. Several days later, Gandhi received a written communication from the magistrate informing him that Lieutenant Governor of the province had ordered the case to be dropped. Civil disobedience had triumphed, the first time in modern India. So Gandhi decided to go against the government, that is, disobeying the civil authorities, and he surprisingly conquered. He won against the government because the government dared not take any action against Mahatma Gandhi. And this proves that coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and when you start working together, success will be achieved. And that is why Gandhi said that the battle of Champaran is won, because the entire force came together. Gandhi and the lawyers now proceeded to conduct a far-flung inquiry into the grievances of the farmers. Depositions by about 10,000 peasants were written down. Depositions are the complaints. And notes made on other evidence. Documents were collected. The whole area throbbed with the activity of investigators and the vehement protests of the landlords. The landlords were not at all ready, because the point stated by them regarding the compensation thing was so loose that yes, they were supposed to lose in if any kind of inquiry was set up, and that is why they vehemently protested against all this whatever was going on, led by Gandhi. In June, Gandhi was summoned to Sir Edward Gate, the Lieutenant Governor. Before he went, he met leading associates and again laid detailed plans for civil disobedience if he should not return. Gandhi had 4 protracted or elongated long interviews with the Lieutenant Governor, who as a result appointed an official commission of inquiry into the indigo sharecroppers situation. The commission consisted of landlords, government officials, and Gandhi as the sole representative of the peasants. So even when they set up a commission, at that time also they did not include everyone in a very good manner. They made the mistake deliberately of involving only Gandhi as the representative of the sharecroppers, and then there were representatives from landlords, representatives again from the side of the government, but only one representative in the form of Gandhi from the side of the sharecroppers. So again, that was very unjustified, and next time when we will reconvene, we will come to know that whether Gandhi succeeded in bringing justice to the people or whether it all became a failure. But this quote that I used in the beginning of the session, I would like to go through the same quote again. And after going through the entire text, you might have realized that how Gandhi perfectly fits inside these words. A true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. He does not set out to be a leader, but becomes one by the equality of his actions and the integrity of his intent. So with this, I would like to close it for now, and next time we will take up the rest of the chapter, and I hope it will be a happy ending.